So yeah, warm welcome and good morning also from my side. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And I think it was a great introduction. The presentation from Mr. Moore was a good startup for my presentation as I'm reflecting on CBAM and the structural mechanism, how they're impacting our industry. And I tried not so much to focus on talking about the technicalities, how an RDF plant works. I think that is well known to most of the participants, but I would like to share our global perspective for more than 100 RDF projects and how the adoption of RDF is let's say, driven across individual countries. So, and I would like to, maybe we can go to the next slide or to the first slide. Perfect. One more, please. Yeah, actually, I would like to start with that number in mind that, as some of you might know, Austria has one of the highest adoption rates in RDF and SRF, and we have a thermal substitution rate of 82% in the cement industry. Only Poland and the Netherlands have more than us. That compares to 18% as a global average. So these figures are coming from the GCCM. And the gap of more than 60%, that is what I would like to talk about, how this could be closed at global scale on the one hand. And the second point I would like to make that, which reflects back on the CBAM presentation, that this topic is a very nice example that regulation is not just a problem for the industry and the economy, but it could also unlock real benefits both for the economy and from an ecological point of view. And I think that the RDF story is an overwhelming example how a good regulation and economic feasibility and ecological aspects can go hand in hand. So yeah, basically, of course, Austria, Germany, and also Poland have higher shares due to the ban of the landfill. Obviously, this is not yet implemented across the European Union at the same stage, and for sure not outside Europe, but we are doing more and more projects outside Europe. We're also over there, the landfill is maybe not banned due to regulation, but for economic reasons mainly. And that is a nice example to see that the economic benefits come along with the ecological perspective. Next slide, please. So that is basically the main argument why RDF is so overwhelmingly positive, both from a technological point of view and commercially. As most of you, especially the ladies and gentlemen from the cement industry, know, from a technical perspective, there is a complete similarity between SRF, as long as it's class 1 and so on, coal and petcoke. However, from a commercial perspective, even without taking into account and factoring in the ETS and CBAM effects, using SRF is already beneficial today. And that gets even better by the trading regime and by EUTS credits. So I made a calculation based from the data we got from our customers. So a typical cement plant producing about 1 million tons a year is saving roughly 18 million euros a year by using SRF in comparison to coal without the effect from the ETS impact. So, and I think this is now, the adoption is even driven more by the implementation of CBAM. As you might know, the free certificates will run out, and by 2034, if far I remember correctly, they should be gone. So we as Lindner are very positive, not just for Europe, but also for the rest of the world, that the adoption of SRF and RDF will further proceed at a quite nice adoption rate. Next slide, please. Yeah, here again, we can see the development over the past 30 years. As you see, the coal price is one aspect. Also, the index for coal and petcoke has gone up over time. But obviously, the EU ATS price, which, as you can see, is around 70 to 80 euros a ton, as we've heard in the previous presentation, is adding on top that, and is really driving the adoption rate. So the rise of 10 euros in the certificate price is roughly shifting 6 kilograms from clinker towards EBS. Can we move on to the next? Yeah. Beside Austria, and that is a nice example from a global perspective, and we see that in other countries as well now, is Poland. Poland used to be at the very top within the European Union, and starting with the EU accession and the landfill ban they have implemented, it was a huge success story. I mean, happily, we as Lindner have had the pleasure to contribute to that growth and build many of the plants that are built in Poland. And looking from the past and from the discussion with our customers, we can draw a few levers that we could take over to other countries and to other regions of the world that drive the adoption rate and that thermal substitution rate. So first of all, obviously, without regulation, there's little to no need to ban landfill. So obviously, and we see that across the globe also, especially in the Middle East and in Asia, as long as landfilling is very cheap, there's no starting of recycling and no creation or very little creation of a local RDF and SRF industry. So that's obviously one structural lever that always needs to be in place. Of course, second, this could not be done without the industry doing all these investments, but that is where we have exactly the intersection with the regulation that the industry and the companies need a regulation that is reliable and not changing course every year to make these long-term capex decisions. But as you can see, more than 2 billion euros have been invested into the RDF SRF infrastructure in Poland in these years until 2020, roughly. Yeah, and last but not least, there have been a few pioneers. So most of the modern cement plants in Poland are operating at the 80% thermal substitution rate, which is similar to what we are used to in Austria and other European countries. And also the heat rate modernization has added to that trend over the past few years. Next slide, please. Yeah, and now what we did internally together with our product management is we made a few calculations what it would mean if we could shift in the next 20 years the world to the same level that Austria or Poland has. And I think there's one, I mean, of course, I'm not going to read all the numbers, but there's one number that is very interesting. This would mean that if we shift all countries to an 80% thermal substitution rate like we have in Austria, the energy we could draw from waste is around 8,000 petajoule. And I try to compare that with the energy consumption of a country. This is roughly the energy consumption of France in a year. So this is the amount of energy we could draw from waste. It would replace 260 million in coal, roughly, and it would mean converting around 600 million tons that are today still landfilled, and they could be converted to industrial fuel in the co-processing. And if we add that together, it's roughly 700 to 800 tons of CO2 that we could avoid. And of course, we would have a positive effect on the methane emissions, because I think that is also overlooked very often, that methane is, besides CO2, also a difficult topic to handle from the landfills. And summing up, if we could achieve that, and I'm confident that maybe not we will have 80% across the globe, but that the global thermal substitution rate will increase by a large amount. We could address 2% of the global emission with only one technology. And the nice thing is that it's not just greenwashing or that there's no business case. The nice thing is that, as I showed you on the pages before today, there's also a positive business case, which hopefully will also help for the implementation of this. Next slide, please. Yeah, summing up what we brought, not just from Poland, but from projects mainly now also in Asia and in the Middle East, and maybe that's an input for the panel discussion later on, a bunch of levers that need to be in place in order to drive that adoption. One, of course, is the policy and the regulation, as we've heard in the previous workshop, with CBAM playing an important role, especially for the next 10 years. Second topic is we need the infrastructure, both starting from the sorting capabilities, then the sorting plants and the RDF plants, and of course the investments from the cement companies in the ovens. Third topic, what we have seen starting after 2010 is that standards in terms of classification of the material have helped a lot to create a European and the global market for trading of mainly SRF, of qualified SRF. That has helped to make traceability easier, to make the trading easier, and to stabilize prices and making more meaningful for the cement companies to plan with it. First topic, of course, it needs to be financed. So we are seeing a lot of projects from IFC, from the Climate Fund and so on outside Europe, where we provide the technology for RDF and SRF plants outside Europe. So that is, of course, another important lever that all these global finance organizations provide the long-term financing instruments to fund such a transition and increase the adoption rate. And last but not least, that is a topic which is important also for us. We always talk about the cement industry, but there's a lot of other applications where RDF and SRF are used already today. So we are working across different industries besides cement industry to also drive the implementation of SRF and RDF over there. Maybe we can go to the next page. Yeah, here you can see a few examples. I think cement is well known. So according to our research, there's more than 1,500 plants across the globe already using SRF and RDF as a main fuel. What is also interesting for us is lime and especially steel. So we do have customers in the US and in Asia and in Brazil that use RDF for co-firing in the steel plants. I think we also see a lot of potential for the adoption of RDF in the steel industry. Also, paper and pulp, we are having currently 3 projects where paper plants are using RDF to produce heat. Yeah, heat is another topic, especially for district heating. In Austria, we tend to use biomass and wood a lot for district heating, but we also see more and more projects where RDF and SRF is used for district heating. For example, the example I've cited here from Lahti in Finland, where the heat for 130,000 inhabitants is derived from waste. And last but not least, industrial boilers. That is a very new topic where we in discussions with the chemical industry and energy intense industries to also evaluate the adoption of RDF and SRF in that industry. So obviously also an important lever to further drive the adoption is that we as a technology company, and not just us as Lindner, all the other players from the equipment industry are providing the technology to the industries that recycling and the processing of waste gets a positive business case, and thus the adoption rate is increased. Next slide, please. Yeah, I think we covered that already, and I'm already running late a little bit, I see. But yeah, that's what I said before. Roughly, the fossil substitution is roughly a factor of 2 in relation to ABS. And I think the second mechanism that is overlooked is that it's also avoiding methane by a huge amount. So where's the methane coming from? if the waste is landfilled, according to our knowledge, that there are still only a 75 to 80% coverage with modern landfills to control the demand, the emissions of methane. But of course, we know from many landfills outside Europe where there's no control at all, and all the methane is emitted over 20 to 30 years and adding to the global warming. Next slide, please. Yeah, so maybe to highlight a few aspects, what we are doing is Lindner in that field. So we are serving customers with technology for RDF and SRF co-processing more than 100 countries. Currently, we have an installed base of shredders and plants of around 2,000 installations worldwide. And over the years, we have roughly produced 9,000 installations across the globe. Of course, not all of them are running anymore, but currently we have around 2,000 of them running across the globe. We are also doing not just shredders, what we are known for. We also do plant building since many years, maybe not at such a large scale as we have always been focused on RDF and SRF, but over the years we also built around 150 of these plants, either for waste processing companies or for the cement industry themselves. Yeah, I think there's one last slide left. Exactly. That is maybe coming from a success story from Europe, where we have come quite a long way of combining ecological positive things with a financial business case. We are now trying to export this idea to all over the world. And right now we're having two very nice examples outside Europe, one in Taiwan, one in Kuwait, where exactly it's nice to see that the, let's say, a good regulation goes hand in hand with a meaningful economics. So to cite the example of Kuwait, basically over there it also has, beside the cost effectiveness of converting the landfill to RDF and SRF, the benefit that they obviously, especially in days like this, they are very dependent on a stable coal transfer from Africa to operate their cement industry. So over here it's beside the economic aspects, also adding a geopolitical aspect into the case that Kuwait decided 6 to 7 years ago to get rid of that dependency on coal and on the transport rules, and thus invest into converting their landfills. So roughly 30% of the overall waste from Kuwait is now transferred to be processed in the cement industry. So I think it's a great example. Yeah, also a reference installation in the Gulf region. And I mean, sadly enough, we have to admit that in times like this, it was the exactly right decision to get rid of the dependency from the coal, as obviously they would not be able to operate the industry right now. But this plant is already up and running, at least one of 3 lines. And we have been part of that project from the very start. Like, we did some consulting of which waste could be used, including the overall and general planning of the plant, and now including the delivery installation and the cold commissioning, which was done a few weeks ago. Another nice example is from Taiwan. We are not allowed yet to reveal the name of the customer, but obviously Taiwan imports a lot of its energy. They have no fossil fuels. Given the geopolitical surroundings over there, it's also not too easy for them. So obviously there's another nice reason to convert waste into an economic, feasible way to energy, and that's exactly what we are doing over there. So also in Taiwan, we are currently building, it's basically a combination of a MRF and the RDF plant to help transform the energy dependency of Taiwan. I mean, I could cite a few other examples across the globe, but the case I wanted to make is there's no need for greenwashing when it comes to the usage of SRF and RDF. The technology is there. The commercial case is clear. we need the right regulation that needs to be developed in an open dialogue with the industry. And then we have a perfect example how climate change, climate action, and proper business can go hand in hand. So that's, yeah, summing up, hopefully this is according to our internal projection. If we are right with the assumptions we are making, that this, what I just said, will be implemented, we do foresee another growth trajectory until 2034 for RDF and SRF. So we think it could easily be doubled, not just in Europe, but as I just mentioned, also outside other areas where the regulation is now also getting tighter, where the need for more economic feasible solutions is required. And what is sadly enough an important driver in these days is the geopolitical aspect, that many countries know that they are sitting on some resources from their landfill waste that they are trying to convert to energy. Yeah. So summing up, as I said, the difference between Austria or Poland or Germany and the world is regulatory and not technological. The commercial business case is there, and also the technology. We have nice examples like Poland, where they have been able to transform their overall industry over the course of 20 years. We do see further applications besides cement industry, like lime, steel, paper, and so on. And yeah, last but not least, we as Lindner want to play a small role. And if you are interested in the technology, feel free to reach out to export this European success story to the rest of the world.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthias, for this excellent presentation.